Time being 7 o'clock, I'll start the Oxford Selection meeting for January 5th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, which is General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people they may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Oxford are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. And what I would like to do is take attendance for this meeting. So I will start out with Selectman Triano.
Selectman Triano, present.
Selectman LeBlanc.
Present.
Selectman Daniels has been activated by the military, so he will not be able to join us. Selectman Sad.
Present.
And I am Selectman Lamache, and I am also present. And we have our town manager, Jen Callahan, who is also present that I can see. Okay, the first item on the agenda is to ratify a previous vote of the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Oxford and the International Association of Firefighters. So I will entertain a motion to ratify that vote.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would just like to recuse myself from this portion of the meeting due to the fact that I have a known conflict with my husband being on the department. So I'm going to leave the meeting. If someone could just let me know when this part's done, and I will rejoin the meeting at that point.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want me to text you or?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll have my phone on me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So do I have a motion to ratify the collective bargaining agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about that, but I don't know if you want a motion first and then discussion.
Yeah, can we have a motion first and then discussion?
I don't want to make the motion, so I'm not going to make this up.
Okay. John?
I'll make the motion.
All right, and I will second the motion to ratify that previous vote. Now we'll open it for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis, I have a quick question. I certainly haven't been on the board for as long as you have or others have, but I have a question. My question is that in the past, when we've signed off on contracts in terms of just ratifying them after they've been negotiated and whatnot, normally we have the contract, but it's signed by both parties. And I don't know if I'm misthinking that, or I'm not certain if there's, I mean, when they need us to sign it, do they want it? Will it be signed by all parties at that time? I'm trying to just kind of, I can only think back to like the police department when we've done some contracts with the police department. And I just wanted to kind of understand has the contract been signed by all parties? Are we still waiting for some things to happen? I was just kind of curious as to where we were with that.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's one of the reasons they have the manager negotiate, hire, and do all the personnel aspects is to actually negotiate all of those points of contention, which we did, and we did it in a very collaborative way with the union. The only reason we asked, for the board to go forward to sign at that point in time was just so that we could actually give the firefighters a retroactive pay. There is no order of who signs who. What it is that both parties at the negotiating table have presented it and that they have supported it. And the formality of whether the board votes first and signs or the union votes first and signed, it's just a matter of whether you trust that the negotiating teams on both sides, which we have, worked at this for many, many months, have come to terms with that. also our legal counsel had reviewed. And so your side is whether you agree with what has been negotiated on behalf of the town and the fire chief and the manager and human resources. And that's really all it is. It's not, there has to be one versus the other. We've been told, repeatedly by the union that they felt very strongly that it was an excellent contract. And we were just trying to give them the retroactive pay before Christmas and also for that year because their W-2s and everything would reflect that. So it was really just, trying to do that. I can't speak except for the fact that, some of the union members had said that they had been a little bit, slow with the holidays and the staffing and people being out, that they just hadn't called their side to just ratify it. But they have on all terms felt it was, very compelling. In the end, if they turned around and didn't support it, well, then we'd have a different issue. But it doesn't matter because you could vote not to support it and it would be the same problem. So typically, when we get to this stage, both sides have agreed to all of the areas. Legal counsel has reviewed it. And the reason I brought it before was just to try to do it before the end of the year. So there's nothing nefarious, nothing we're trying to sideline anybody. It was really just trying to work with human resources, work with the legal counsel, mostly work with the members who I know would be eager to get those retroactive payments.
I got that. I understand that. Thank you, Madam Town Manager. I do understand that. And I do know that that was why we were voting on it, so that we could get those retro payments out. And I hear what you're saying about us not having necessarily an order, for lack of a better term, in terms of who votes and who doesn't. And I certainly want to make it clear, my intention is not to negotiate anything. I mean, that you're absolutely right. It's already been negotiated. It's at the table, whatever it is. I just want, historically, we're the last piece of it. Now, this might not always be the case, but historically, we're the last piece of it in order to sign off on it. And I just want to make sure, has the union let me just make sure I clarify this. Not the individual who is negotiating on behalf of the union, but has the union as a collective whole, have they seen this and have they voted for it?
I see that fire chief has come on the meeting.
Oh,
so
there he is.
I can ask him, he'll know the better status. I know that when we reached out to it, the union representatives, they said, honestly, it was just a matter of the fact that they have been sort of trying to make coverage, through the holidays. And they, even though our legal counsel had reviewed everything, they forgot on their side, I think, to send their version that was negotiated both sides up to the union legal counsel. And so I was trying not to, we had moved actually more quickly to have legal counsel, finalize and check off. And I think that was where we left it with them. And, but again, it was just one of those things as we were nearing the holiday time at the end of the year that I think they were having trouble having their legal counsel, reflect upon the final changes. But I don't know, Chief, if you can chime in maybe to help answer any of these questions, that would be helpful.
Okay, good evening, Madam Town Manager and members of the Board of Selectmen. I didn't get the full question because the Zoom had kind of cut out on me, so I got part of it. Could I just have the question repeated again, please?
Dennis, do you want me to repeat it or?
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Cheryl.
That's okay. Without going into all of the gyrations that I did earlier, Chief McDonald, I was just curious if the contract that you guys have negotiated, if the final product had been placed in front of the union, not the union representative who was negotiating, which I think was the president, if I remember the contract correctly. If it had been actually put forth in front of the collective body of the union and that if they had taken a vote on it yet.
That's my understanding. That has not occurred yet. So essentially, we agreed to the terms of the contract, and the way this typically works is
Yep.
each each of the representatives are empowered by their organizations they represent to negotiate on behalf, and then it's up to either side to negotiate. I mean, to ratify either through vote what was negotiated by each side. So we came to agreement on the body and substance of the contract, and now that all that mattered, and talking to the president. The last time we had some discussion on this, that we had all agreed to the terms of the contract. It was just a matter of having it evaluated by either side's legal counsel for the verbiage, that both parties agree to. I don't see anything on either side that would basically stop that or, be of concern. So the steps we're at now is we have a contract that both negotiating parties have agreed to. We're at the stage where, from our standpoint as management in the town, where we're ready to vote on our portion of it. They're waiting for their legal review and to get together and have the body vote it up. And the general consensus that I received from the leadership there is they expect it to pass. But again, it's typical that each side will vote which side. There's no order of preference or precedence on what has to occur first before one or the other votes for the acceptance of their contract of what they voted for represented.
Got it. Thank you, Chief McDonald. That helps. And Jen, if I may, and this is gonna be a ridiculous question, but I'm just gonna ask it just for my clarification. There's two attorneys, right? That we don't share the same attorney. So it's an attorney for the town and an attorney for the union, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And finally, Cheryl, I think to your point too, I think knowing that both sides wind up ratifying and there's no particular order, I do think that the fact that the board did take it up before the end of the year really reflect their desire, despite this whole pandemic and trying to negotiate through a pandemic, that we do support a lot of the positions. Obviously, were very important to the union to include, from increasing the manpower on the shifts, keeping our North Fire Station open, all of those things that were important to them. And I think that showed that the board reflected upon that and as a good faith feels that it's a good contract. And I think that will help motivate the body collectively to ratify it. But I also think we have to hopefully trust both the president and the negotiators at the table that they'll do their best to inform their membership and sign. And that's what I anticipate that would happen. But I appreciate the questions.
Thanks, Jen. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Chairman. I
just-
appreciate it.
Just to clarify then, really, maybe I'm wrong. My viewpoint is that if we ratify this and then the fire department doesn't ratify their end, then our vote means nothing because we'll be going back to the table, correct? That's correct. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, then I will call for a vote.
I'm going to vote no.
All right. John?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that's 2 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstention, and 1 absent. So we have ratified that contract. Thank you. All right. Let me see. Just give me a sec. All right, so next item on our agenda is ratification of the previous vote for the Class 1 license for Robert Zalewski, who's doing business as New England Choppers. I'd entertain a motion to ratify that contract.
I make the motion.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then I will call for a vote. Yes.
Mr. Chair, no, I just have a quick question. Is this an addition? Was this one of the ones that we just missed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bob is, he was a new license that we voted on last year. That wasn't at the beginning of the year. He come in like, I want to say in April or something like that. And so with everything going on, his license didn't get put on the list. So when we voted for all the other class 1 licenses, he wasn't on that. And so that's why we had that meeting on the 31st, so we could okay that, so he'd have a license for the first of the year. So,
Okay, got it.
all right.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just because I came in the midst of that, could you just tell me what the motion is that I'm voting on?
We're ratifying the previous vote that we took on the what was it, the 31st, I think, for the class 1 license for Robert Zaluski, who's doing business as New England Shoppers.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Good question. All right, so I will call for a vote.
Yes.
Dennis, should I abstain because I wasn't able to make the meeting on the 31st?
No,
Or,
this is
I
a
can go-
ratification.
okay, so, yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent. That vote is ratified. Excellent. All right, next item is a donation from JBV Incorporated to the town of Oxford. Town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have some really good news, once again reflecting the generosity of this community, particularly during this past holiday season. John Shee of Meiji Asian Cuisine had contacted the Office of the Board of Selectmen and also the town manager and wanted to make a donation to the town in the amount of $2,000. This goes in above and beyond what he typically has been doing, especially for our public safety officers who even on New Year's Day had brought in a lunch for all of the working staff. And he did want this $2,000 to go to the town and felt that we would know best on how to actually use it. And he didn't want to have any restrictions placed upon it. So we would like to accept the donation formally on behalf of Meiji Asian Cuisine.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to accept that donation.
I would make that motion.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then I will call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent. We gladly accept that and thank them very, very much. You've also been given in your packet the meeting dates for the board through the summer. And that's kind of just for information purposes, unless anybody has any concerns. All right. Very good. Then we go on to our next item, which is the town manager's report. Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, I would like to begin the first several aspects of my report to be focused on COVID-19, particularly relating to our town. I think I have been in contact with a number of you to inform you that our cases overall have been climbing pretty significantly. As of January 5th, that is today, I had spoken with our public health nurse, and we are at 128 active cases. And since the total time that we have been reporting on COVID, we have a total of 609 cases. And just to put this in perspective, even though I had been emphasizing to the board in our previous meetings before Thanksgiving and now through the holidays, that just in the month of December alone, we had 324 new cases. That is more than triple the total cases we had for the preceding 10 months. We just broke that time that we were looking at, that we were concerned about in terms of overall cases. And additionally, we have had several other deaths related to COVID-19 in our community, bringing our total to 13 COVID-related deaths. Having said that, of course, we have also been notified and we have been watching the news about the rollout of vaccines. Our police, fire, and EMS personnel, I wanted this board to know, have already begun scheduling their COVID-19 vaccinations. I know our chief, when I spoke with him this morning, Chief McDonald, was receiving his. There had been a lot of questions surrounding when to actually get the vaccine program going. Whether we would join in with some other towns, some which are going to offer it to their first responders. We initially thought about going with Auburn, but then Harrington Memorial had stepped forward and was offering to administer the Pfizer vaccine. And we decided to go with the quicker alternative. And I'm pleased to say that a number of our police, fire, and EMS personnel are well underway of having received the vaccine. Having to speak about vaccines, I will also say that I want to alert the general public that there is, possible scams that are out there in which people are trying to take advantage of the whole concern and fear of this virus by enticing people to pay out of their pocket to get a vaccine or to be placed on a list and then pay to be placed on that list. These are, scams that may be coming from unsolicited and unknown sources. And we have to make sure that people in our community know that at the point at which vaccines will be allowed to the general public and those people who fall into high risk priority status categories, they will not be asked at all, not only to pay for a vaccine, but to have anything being shipped to them individually, because that is just not going to happen. So you see this flyer that's in front of you. We have actually put it out on our website and also our Facebook as a way of trying to get the public to realize there's always someone trying to make a dime off of someone's misery, and I just can't stand it. So I just wanted everyone to know out in the public that we're going to be cautiously looking at that. But if you do receive any buddy reaching out, there is a hotline on a number of fronts, whether it's the FBI or the state, to inform them that someone's trying to actually use the vaccination demand as a way of scamming people out of money. The next item on the COVID update is just to remind everybody that Governor Baker has issued a temporary reduction in occupancy levels in many sectors, including office environments. And we have been doing that as well with our employees, whether they're in one building or another. The pause period started on December 26th, and it will be lasting through January 10th. And again, this occupancy reduction is basically back down to 25% among most sectors, including office environments and business sectors that have been delineated. And in your packets, we did put that as a reminder in case you get any questions about, some of the areas that would be consistent with. And then again, we have those limitations for outdoor activities as well, being limited to 10 persons indoors and 25 on the outside. The next item is just to remind this board that at the end of December, we were being informed by the federal government that the Federal CARES Act was actually going to expire on December 31st, 2020. And we had worked quite diligently in trying to capture all our COVID-related expenditures prior to that deadline. And actually in the recent federal bill that was filed as a stimulus, the deadline now has been extended to the following December. And really that's a welcome news, because as we have been increasing our number of cases, all of the areas that we had ramped up prior in the spring are now coming to roost again, in which we have to have those kinds of resources at our disposal, and those would be hopefully covered under the CARES Act as we go forward. Of course, every time we get some kind of expenditure, it's up to us to not only log it properly, but to be able to defend it in the future for that kind of reimbursement to occur. But for us, for the basic public health sector services that we're providing, and the public health tracing, contact tracing, and all the other areas related to keeping the public and the staff and the employees safe, all of that is reimbursable under the COVID-19 CARES Act, and we're paying close attention to that. So I'm very happy to report that that deadline has been extended. The next item is just to let you know that Lifeline practical training is going to be taking place here in the town of Oxford with our fire EMS department. They're going to be conducting this joint training for emergency procedures for landing zones on January 9th, 2021. This will also assist our department in familiarizing them with procedures related to life flights. Chief, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that since I have you on the line here. That you are expecting or anticipating this particular areas that would actually take place so that people, if they see this helicopter landing and launching, that they would be concerned about. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, thank you. So we're going to have this training at one of our landing zones. There's several throughout the town that we have designated to get the aircraft as close as possible to any place, in the town. If we have to take somebody who suffered severe trauma and get them transported by helicopter. On this particular training event, we're going to do it at the high school, which is a designated landing zone that's centrally located in the town so that the crews from both stations can participate without being outside of the response perimeter for their respective response areas. And so as the manager pointed out, this is important to us because the aircraft requires a suppression apparatus to be on standby in the event the unlikely, and unwanted happens with the aircraft, but also to be able to communicate with the air crew, the pilot in particular, to give them descriptions of the landing zone so that everybody understands if they ever get tasked with being in charge of the landing zone, they know how to interface and talk on the radio and give instructions to the crew, and then approach the aircraft and transfer the patient to the aircraft in a safe manner.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be looking forward to seeing them because that always represents, a direct link for us anytime we know we have a major emergency. The next item is just to let the board know that the governor had announced a very substantial release of funding through a grant program, no less than $668 million to provide financial assistances to businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. I know that through the holidays, any time that I was actually buying locally, I was also impressing upon the owners or the general managers of those businesses to make sure they have until January 15th to set in an application. And I would strongly advise every small business that thinks that they might not have been eligible or they were bypassed in some of the other federal initiatives. I understand their frustration, but I will say that this $668 million as a direct grant to these businesses to keep them afloat is really very important, that they do not miss this opportunity and that this is real funding and real funding assistance. And so I don't care how small the business is, the requirements or the threshold for impact is quite straightforward. And I think one of our businesses would be able to do that. I am going to work with our Director of Planning and Economic Development to do outreach directly to our businesses to inform them so that they will not miss this opportunity. But I thought I would take the opportunity for the board because I know you see a lot of people and talk with people throughout the community that are business owners. So please emphasize that they can not only find that on the state website, but you can find the application process on empoweringsmallbusinesses.org. And I would encourage all our businesses to take a look at that. The next item is just through all of this craziness in terms of COVID, our tax bills have been mailed. I know we set our tax rate quite early and the bills did get out before the final deadline and they are due April 1st. And just to make everyone aware that they can pay their taxes both online, by mail, or be dropped in our two drop boxes because we have one both in the front and now in the back of the town hall. And not to be concerned about that because we do have security that watches those boxes as well. And then we also have our window where people can come for customer service directly. The next item is just to remind the public, we are in the month of January and a lot has occurred with the holidays, but I did make mention that that our tax title auction or property auction that we were scheduling for January 7th, I had said it was going to be delayed because of the COVID changes in requirements coming down from the governor. And so we wanted people to be still interested in looking at the properties because we eventually will have this for a spring date to be determined. And I've asked Tim to make sure that everyone knows they can go on to zecosgroup.com, the auctions, and look and click right on to Oxford. We have the two actual properties that have dwellings on them and a variety of other land parcels that are related for potential residential and commercial use. And they have all of those descriptors there. So that helps us if we can bring those properties back on the tax rolls. And it also helps people who might be interested. We have already started to have some people actually making inquiries, and we will be notifying abutters as we go forward, as the auctioneer group actively does, because they more people that are interested in it, the better we do at the auction phase. The next item is just to remind people that our poor Christmas trees that are now going past season can be dropped off at Saturday on January 9th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the DPW garage. And we just ask people to be mindful when they're dropping their trees off that, you know, our department does practice social distancing, and we'll be doing that on that day as well. The next item is just to let people know that our cat and dog licensing began on January 4th. That was yesterday, and our payments can be made on our website so that people do not have to feel that they have to come forward to do that. And that's an integral part of making sure we have responsible pet owners in town. We encourage you to do that and not incur any additional fees by forgetting or extending beyond the due date. The next item is just to let the board know, I put this on my report. It came to me a little bit late, but I wanted to entertain the board to the request that is coming from the Girl Scouts to have a recruitment event on February 6th from 12:30 to 2:30 with a rain date of February 14th. The Girl Scouts had come before us. I had explained to them that it was important that they get some approval for this kind of event from the Board of Health. They have met with the Board of Health and they granted them approval for this event. And the Scouts had stated that they wanted to, and they will follow all the COVID guidelines. I know they want to advertise it. And since it's February 6th and we just got notified that the Board of Health late in December had already approved it. If the board was considerate of allowing them to go forward, we could actually do a vote and then put it as a formal vote at another meeting, but then they could at least advertise it, which is the whole point. It's been a difficult year, I think, for any of these organizational youth groups, and I'd like to wish them success for that. Obviously, they've gone through the muster of having the Board of Health approve them, and so it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you would like to entertain that or not, and have the board, vote to approve the use of Jocelyn Park as defined with the COVID guidelines issued by the Board of Health, with a notion that we could ratify it at the next meeting. But I could wait, but then they would have really virtually 2 weeks of notice. And I just thought if we could give them 4 weeks, it would be helpful to them.
I have no issue, so I will open it up to the board. I would entertain a motion to approve this request.
Make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not seeing or hearing any, I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll vote yes. That's 4 in affirmative, 1 absent. They are most welcome to use Jocelyn Park. Wish them luck. Thank you.
Thank you. The next, second to the last item is the monument update. As you know, we had applied for a historic monument refurbishing and of our veterans memorials and monuments across the town. Colonial Stone, we have engaged their services to actually do this work, and which we hope to have it all completed before Memorial Day. I know we had spoken about it at a previous meeting, one in which actually Selectman Daniels wasn't there. I had said that does not have to be a formal committee, but I was putting together key stakeholders to help us actually pick out a design. As you know, our World War I monument, through the advocacy of a couple of our members of our honor guard and others, understand that it has been decaying, and we've had professionals look at it. And even though the big bronze plaque is well intact, and it can be brought back to its beautiful life with great luster in the fact if we had it professionally cleaned, the monument base itself is deteriorating. So the last meeting we talked that I was going to put together a group of people to help work with Colonial Stone to look at possible designs and settle on the location of the monument itself. At that time, I had mentioned that perhaps Selectman Sad, who's very active in our veteran services, would like to participate in that design review. And I know at that time we talked about potentially Mike Daniels perhaps having some interest. I know he's not here tonight, but I have no problem if both gentlemen would like to serve on that. They are going to be removing the actual plaque from the World War I monument on Wednesday, January 6th, to begin at 8 a.m. so that they can start to bring it to the location to have it refurbished. And then I would like to try to convene the group, which would include one of our historical commission members, obviously Terry Cummings, and several others. And I would like to have at least one or two members of the board here help us in selecting the design, which we will eventually bring back to the board here as well, but trying to keep the process moving. So I would entertain any kind of advocacy to have one of your members or two be part of that process.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be more than happy to participate.
Excellent, John. Jen, I don't know, the email I got from Mike is his activation was due to COVID with the military, and he stated he wasn't sure what his schedule is going to be like for the next couple of months.
Okay.
So it's something I think we need to get in touch with him and find that out about Mike. I mean, I'd have no problem. I think he'd be a great one also.
Well, I think what we could do, Mr. Chairman, and that way both could be able to participate. I can certainly send him, especially if he can't make, a formal Zoom meeting or in-person meeting that we might have, or a site walk and things like that. I can certainly share that with him. I'm going to share it with all of the board as we go forward, but as far as a participation part where he may be able to still weigh in even if he can't. So I will definitely make my effort to do that, and I welcome the participation of both. But obviously, if Selectman Sad can be the point person, that would be terrific.
Yep, sounds good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. And the last item is a licensee update. I just wanted to advise the board that Veranda Cafe Company LTD did not actually pass their annual 110 safety inspection. Therefore, by Mass General Law, Chapter 10, Section 74, we technically cannot renew their pouring license. And so having said that means that the Office of the Board of Selectmen will have to communicate with the ABCC regarding this matter. They also hold a common victular license that does not have necessarily the same restrictions or standards they have to meet in order to actually continue using that license. So, obviously this has consequences for this business. I won't get into all the details of why the enforcement officer and fire prevention officer did not renew that. But my question to the board tonight is whether they wanted to, for the common victular license, offer a contingency that they may continue to use that license until we have a ruling from the ABCC. about what they plan to do for the pouring license. They're two separate licenses, but I'm just bringing to your attention that, rather than create the circumstances where the business is completely cannot operate, maybe allow the food section part to continue until we actually have either compliance or the orders from the ABCC and which direction they will go.
Board members, comments, questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, John. Yes.
Yeah, I really feel bad because this is not a very good time to be putting additional stress on local businesses that are dealing with the COVID situation. I think we should do all we can do that is within the law and within code to allow them to continue to at least sell food. I mean, that's their primary business. The alcohol is secondary. It's a beer and wine, I believe. So whatever effort can be made to help them out in that regard, I fully support it.
Thank you, John. I know my thought, I agree with you in that regard, John. The only question I have is the safety, because there are some issues with fire inspections as well as the building inspection. So, that would be my concern, is that if he can safely sell food, I'm okay with that. But if he can't, if there's a safety issue with the fire department or the building, then, are we, how are we as a board supposed to, do we have any part in that, You know what I'm saying?
Jim, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. All I'm saying is I think that we should make every effort to work with them. We realize that safety is an important issue here, and we don't want to be responsible for letting a company continue and have an unsafe environment for the residents of the community. But I guess my point is, I think we ought to do whatever we can to work with them so that they can at least accomplish a minimum so that they can at least meet standards that would be acceptable to our inspections.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you there. Any other comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, sure.
I'm in agreement with you. I'm wondering, could we potentially revisit this once they've had a chance to fix the safety hazards before we make a final ruling on it? I read through the packet as well, and it appeared that there were, like you said, some significant potential hazards that seem like they could be an easy fix. So maybe we could say that approval would be contingent upon a sign off from the fire department indicating that the potential hazards have been resolved before they're able to have people in there. I'd hate to have some sort of tragedy happen because of the violations that were listed in our packet.
I think we're all on the same page in that regard. And I agree with you, Selectman Triano. So maybe we could, at our next meeting, get an update on this and we'll go from there. How's that sound, Jen?
I think that sounds reasonable. The one thing that I just want to make sure is right now we're discussing the common vic license portion. The only reason I say this is because in talking with our legal counsel, that we really have no discretion to waive the actual 110 license requirement by the ABCC. So it will be them who will have to look at that. And they have a different reason. It's not just the safety inspection. They also look at alteration of premise. And if there's a roof going on this, they actually have to know that. And so they'll have to be in touch with the owner for that. So they right now do not have a pouring license, but I do agree that we could continue you know, and the ABCC will be notified of the fact that they didn't have that final requirement that was required. But I think it's quite reasonable to put together information that will help substantiate the board's desire to try to extend the common vic license usage contingent upon, as we've said, the ability to become compliant. And then, you know, we will hopefully sort the other pieces of it out. But I just want you to know we will do everything we can. I do know that our inspection officials have been trying to work closely with the owner on a number of occasions. This goes back, you know, to this past summer. So this isn't something that quickly, you know, was put in front of the owner that they didn't know. So we'll continue to do that. You know, my commitment is to continue to try to help the business as much as possible, but also maintain compliance with the lead licensing agency at the state level. And I think we can do both things, but I just didn't want the board not to know about it and to be caught off guard with any questions that come your way.
Yeah, but Jen, the common vic license, that's a safety issue also is involved
It
in
is.
the approval of
It
that.
is.
So that's what we're talking about here. We're saying, yeah, we'll allow it for now as long as they can be corrected.
Mhm.
So, no, because none of us want to take a chance that something happens because it's a safety issue. So I think at the next meeting, we'll bring this forward again. And if he has, you know, worked with us, then there'll be no issue. If he hasn't, then the board will probably be looking at this in a little more detail.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I will make sure that our enforcement officials will be attending and also give a report that will help the board also be more informed about how to make this decision going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes,
quick,
Cheryl. Yeah, go ahead.
you know, it certainly, you know, I've read through this and it certainly sounds like to me that he's probably been on the radar of for different town departments. And he might very well be in the same situation that a lot of other people are in, which is, you know, COVID, decreased, you know, earnings, those types of things.
Yep.
Jen, you know, would he be a candidate for, you know, you mentioned that you were thinking about making some phone calls for the, or not you, but the Office of Planning and Community Development. I mean, maybe he could benefit from being notified that this grant, that one of these grants would, you know, might be of some help to him if cash flow is an issue in getting, you know, the roof done and so forth. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from all of the board members is, you know, we really just want to work with them, you know, but it's got to be safe.
Correct.
And if we know of a cash flow form, I mean, maybe, you know, he might be very appreciative of us saying that, you know, we might have something out there. There might be something for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that grant money there, the
Right.
16 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Good point, Cheryl. Any other discussion? All right, Jen, you all set?
I am. That would conclude the report. I appreciate all the feedback and then we'll make sure we have that particular item on our next agenda.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Selectmen's requests. We'll start with Selectman Triano.
Just have one quick thing. I was thinking about it after we spoke about the life flight demonstration that the fire department is having. I saw in our packet that the fire chief had wanted the had wanted to notify the town and had also wanted the blessing of the superintendent to have the training at the high school. Do you know, have we given the heads up to the police department that Life Flight's basically going to be landing in their backyard? But also kind of on the heels of that, have we, I know it's a fire department training, but have we considered perhaps extending some sort of invitation to the police department as well? Because typically Life Flight's coming because there's been some sort of traumatic event, and they're such an integral part of our first response for events like that. it might be beneficial to have the officers also kind of understand what a landing zone would be like, because chances are they'd be doing traffic details, and a lot of times they are hands-on helping as well. Just to think it might be nice just to, one, give them the heads up, and two, perhaps maybe see if they wanted to observe as well. I don't know if that's an option, and I'm not trying to overstep. It was more just a thought process that had come to mind when we were discussing it earlier.
Well, Megan, Larry, I think, is still on. At least I see it, so maybe he could answer that for us. Larry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We're always open to extending an invitation to our partners in law enforcement. In fact, Detective LeBreton and I were just talking about the value of those joint trainings, as well as the lieutenant yesterday afternoon. We can certainly do that, and it was our intent to notify all agencies, including law enforcement, once we had approval to proceed with the landing zone. So definitely open to that.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.
And then the other thing is, I just wanted to say thank you to our police and fire. They had to deal with quite the call yesterday, and I just wanted to extend yet again my respect and admiration for the jobs that they do, and let them know that all of their efforts do not go unnoticed. And then again, with the DPW, thank you for keeping our roads safe during the slushy mess that we had. Once again, Oxford's roads were definitely much better than our surrounding towns. So hope you all had a nice new year as well. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much. Selectman LeBlanc.
Good evening. Happy New Year, everyone. I know it's been a busy week, Jen, and I almost hate to bring this up, but I'd like to get it back on the radar if we could, because if I get one more phone call, I think there's going to be an uprising somewhere in town. Sacarapa Bridge. We've got the borrowing out there, and I know that I haven't asked about it because I know we've had some transitions over in DPW, but I'm just wondering if we could get an update on that in terms of where we're at, what we're waiting for, if there's anything any of us can do, that type of thing.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Our DPW director, we've just been going through our capital projects and estimates based on information that have come. And I know we're working together to actually put out a lot of projects, straight for bid. And I think we'll be prepared to be able to talk about that on the next meeting or the meeting soon thereafter. I'll try to work to make sure he can attend. Okay?
Super. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all I had, Chairman.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could for a minute, and Madam Town Manager, I just thought this might be something you might find useful, Selectman LeBlanc, in terms of that. I did have some chance just before he left to talk over this with our former DPW director, Sean Dival. And I think we were looking at trying to get some grant money to work on the Sacarapa project. And the problem is, I think it's looked at in 3 phases, and it's hard to find funding and ways to fix it, because it's a culvert or a bridge or a dam, and they're kind of interrelated. So I do know that in talking to him, that was some of the problems with trying to find the mechanism to get that bridge restored, if that's useful to you to some degree.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
I thought the last time that we discussed this with Sean, that we were waiting pretty much just for DEP approval. And once we had that, we were ready to go. So I don't know where that stands now. It seems like it's been for years. So I would hope that the DEP can get involved in that real soon.
I know, just brought up, and we'll bring it up
Yeah.
the next meeting, that the all permitting for the state had come to a crawl because of COVID. But we, and along with even board members here, obviously a lot of people were trying to apply pressure because they needed to do those reviews. And those reviews for DEP come back to us, and then we restructure the project based on what their requirements are. So if they tell us we have to do certain things to the project, it can add money to the project, or it can take money away because they may not require certain things. But we'll leave those details, for an actual agenda item, and we can go over those. And it's time to do that anyway. And I appreciate the fact that it feels like a long time. I think the overall issue has been there for a long time, but the engineering firm we've been working with has been working very expediently this past year, even through the COVID part of it. And I know that Sean really pushed it before he went out the door as well. So yeah, let's do this. I think it'll be good. We'll all get on the same page. We need to do that anyway. It's on my radar as I'm putting together our capital budget and anything we might need as extra to make the project move forward. So let's have that discussion. I think it'll be great.
All right, thank you. Cheryl, anything else?
No, I'm all set. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, thank you. Selectman Sad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish you all and all the residents of the community a very happy new year, safe and healthy one. That's all I have for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Well, after hearing our agenda items, I personally would like to just thank Magi Asian Cuisine, for what they donated to the town. It's really awesome that, especially a restaurant in these times of COVID, where they're being affected so much, would have that heart to donate that kind of money to the town. I think it's a real tribute to the kind of establishment that they run there. So I personally would just like to thank them for that. And Selectman LeBlanc, you must be reading my mind, because I was today sitting at the light at Home Depot and looking at that sign and saying, I got to bring that issue up tonight. And you beat me to it. So, but it's something that's just been going on too long. And I don't know how we pressure the state to get their end of it down, but it's somehow it's got to get done. It's got to get started as soon as possible. So that's my point of view. And with that, that's all I have. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion?
Second that motion?
We have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I vote yes. For an affirmative, one absent. We are adjourned. Thank you all for attending. Have a good week.
Have a good week.
Thank you.